BH19 The Trail. When Ace got out of her taxi outside Schofield's flower shop, she saw a tall, bald-headed old man scrubbing at the sidewalk with the help of a stiff broom and a bucket of soapy water. She paid off her taxi and went over to him. "Won't it come out?" He rested on his broom. "Blood don't shift easy, missy. It kind of soaks into things." "You sound as if you've had lots of practice." "I surely have. I mopped up inside here when they shut down Mr. O'Banion a few years back. Want to see? I'm about done out here." He picked up the bucket and led her inside the shop. It was a sizable place, about 25 feet wide and a good 50 feet deep. There were plants and ferns all around, and a huge display rack in the center of the room. It was filled with red roses. The color of blood, thought Ace. "Them's American Beauty roses," said the old man. "Same kind we had in the shop that day." He pointed to a faint stain on the floor just in front of the rack. "That's where I found Mr. O'Banion's body. I've been scrubbing that floor quite a few years now, and I still can't get all the blood out." "What happened?" asked Ace. "Mr. O'Banion was in here fussing with some chrysanthemums. We had a big funeral order coming in. You know that man really loved flowers. Lots of people thought he bought this place just for a front. But that ain't so. He had a real gift for the work. He liked to do all the big displays himself." There was something distinctly odd about the idea of a gangster with a talent for flower arranging, thought Ace, but she didn't say anything. The old man went on with his story. Ace realized that he enjoyed telling it, that he'd probably told it hundreds of times. "There was a whole mess of petals all over the floor. Mr. O'Banion, he says to me, 'Bill, you mind cleaning up those petals?' He was always very polite, Mr. O'Banion. So I sweeps up the petals into a big dustpan and carries it out the back. Just as I go through the workroom door, I hear some people coming into the shop, and Mr. O'Banion says, 'Hi, boys, you here for the flowers?' I go on out to the trash can in the back alley, and suddenly I hear all these shots. I run back into the shop, and there's Mr. O'Banion lying there dead, and 3 guys disappearing out of the door. I hear a car engine, and by the time I get to the door, they're gone." "So you didn't really get a good look at them? Didn't recognize anyone?" "I'm still here, ain't I?" Ace nodded understandingly, and suddenly realized she was investigating the wrong murder. "What about when Mr. Weiss was shot?" The old man chuckled. "That time I really didn't see anything. I was working out the back when I heard one of them Tommy guns blazing away. By the time I got out front, Mr. Weiss was dead on the sidewalk. I didn't really know Mr. Weiss too well. He wasn't friendly like Mr. O'Banion." "I hear the shots came from the boarding house next door." "That's what they say." Ace took a $5 bill from out of her purse and slipped it into his hand. He looked at it in surprise. "That's way too much." Ace smiled. "My pleasure." As the old man tucked the bill away in his overalls pocket, a young man came out of the back of the shop. He wore a grey suit, a loudly striped shirt, and a flashy tie held down by a jewelled tie pin. One of those round straw hats called skimmers was stuck on the back of his head, and there was a cigar between his teeth. Ace could see the bulge of a gun under his left lapel. "Still playing tour guide, Bill?" he said in a loud, raucous voice. "How about earning your pay for once? Get out back and clean up some of that mess in the workroom." The old man looked at him without replying, then picked up his broom and went out through the back of the shop. The flushy young man gave an uneasy laugh. "I don't know why we keep that dumb old man on here. Can I help you, lady?" His contemptuous dismissal of the gentle old man made Ace feel like killing him on the spot. She remembered the doctor's warning and forced herself to smile. "Sorry, that was my fault. I was asking the questions." "How come?" "Just another curious tourist." The young man nodded. He was used to dames from out of town looking for a few cheap thrills from Chicago's sinful reputation. He usually did pretty well with them, and this one looked classier than most. If you want the lowdown on life in Chicago, lady, you've found the right guy. I have? Sure thing. I could tell you stories would curl your hair. Stories about the Jaime Weiss murder? Sure. I was there. I saw the whole thing. Ace was pretty sure he was lying to impress her, but she decided to play him along just a little longer. She gave him a seductive smile. Really? He came closer. Sure. Why don't we talk about it over a drink? There's a speakeasy just down the street. He grabbed her by the shoulders and pulled her close. They got rooms as well. Information or no information, thought Ace. Enough was enough. There were limits to what she was prepared to do to help the doctor in his mission, whatever it was. She brought her knee up. Hard. The young man bent forward with an agonized whoop and encountered a 3-fingered strike to the solar plexus that left him paralyzed. Ace was tempted to follow up with a heel strike to the septum that would drive splinters of bone into his brain, but she remembered the doctor's words. Restraining herself, she delivered a chop to the upper lip that started a spectacular nosebleed and a rabbit punch that slammed him to the floor. Ace picked up the iron bucket, still half full of soapy water, tipped it over him, and went out of the shop. The young man's name was Tony Ricotti, and he was a very minor member of the Gussenberg mob. As he came painfully back to consciousness, he became aware that someone was helping him to his feet. It was a stranger, a tall, thin fellow. He must have just come into the shop. He was somehow familiar. Ricotti had a vague idea he was one of Polak Joe Soltis's boys. "Lousy dame sucker-punched me," said Ricotti thickly. "I saw it," said the stranger. "When I get my hands on her—" "She went into the boarding house next door," said the stranger calmly. "She's still there now, nosing around, asking questions." He handed Ricotti a towel. The mobster rubbed a mixture of blood and soapy water from his face and dried his dripping hair. "Yeah?" He clawed for the gun under his arm. "I'm going to go around there and fill that bitch full of holes." "Take it easy," said the stranger. "Don't you know who that was? She's the one they call the Black Lady. Works for a guy named Doc." "That's the dame took out Swifty Morelli?" "That's right, and you know how fast he was. Go after her, and you're liable to wind up dead, not just damaged." "But we gotta do something. Swifty was a pal of mine." "I can tell you how to get her, and get her good." "Yeah? How?" "She's a good-looking dame." "So?" "Joe's cat houses can always use a little new talent. Listen." The stranger began to speak in a low, persuasive voice. Ricotti listened with eager attention, saying, "Yeah, right," as the scheme unfolded. He went to the back of the shop, unhooked the wall phone, and made a number of urgent calls. When he had finished, he said, "It's all set." Ricotti broke off, looking around the shop in astonishment. The stranger had disappeared. Ace was getting nowhere fast at the boarding house. The owner, Mrs. Rotariu, had gone off somewhere, and in true Chicago style, the other tenants knew nothing about anything. They didn't know where the landlady had gone or when she was coming back. They didn't know anything about the tenant of the now empty first-floor front. No one had spoken to him. No one seemed to have even seen him. The first-floor tenant, a burly white-haired old railway man, invited her into his kitchen for coffee and explained why. "Had a young nephew once, worked on the railway like me. Nice kid, kind of straight arrow, keen churchgoer. One night he's coming home off the late shift, see 2 guys toss a dead man out of a car. Kid's got good eyesight, too good. He gets a look at the 2 guys, takes down the car number. Police finds the guys and pulls them in. Kid picks them out of a lineup. They get arrested, sent for trial. Eyes staring bleakly into the distance, the old man took a swig of coffee. Then the phone calls start. They begin by telling the kid he can make a pile of dough just by having a lapse of memory. He turns them down. Then comes the threats, saying what's going to happen to him if he testifies. Kid's tough. He doesn't crack. Tells him to go to hell. Few nights later, he's coming home off the late shift. Big black caddy comes round the corner, smashes him off the sidewalk. Kid dies on the way to hospital. Driver of the caddy's never found. No witnesses, no case. The killers walk. Lady, if someone guns you down right here in this goddamn kitchen, I won't see or hear anything, and neither will anyone else. And the killers go on killing, said Ace. The old man shrugged. That's Chicago. At least if you leave them alone, they only kill each other. Thanks for the coffee, said Ace, and went back on her way. Back in the corridor, she decided to take a look at the now empty flat used by the machine gunner. It was locked, but a few minutes' work with a hairpin fixed that. It wasn't much of a room. The brass bedstead was creaky and tarnished, and the dressing table mirror was fly-blown. There were a couple of rickety wooden chairs, a gas hot plate, a tin food safe, and that was it. Still, thought Ace, the room's former tenant had probably been more interested in the view than in the amenities. She went to the window and looked out, checking the field of fire with a professional eye. Down and to the right there was a pretty good view of the front of Schofield's flower shop. Unfortunately, the front of the shop jutted out, shielding the actual door. Nevertheless, there was a clear view of the sidewalk and of the road in front of the shop. You could be pretty sure of getting someone arriving by car, the way the unknown machine gunner had got Vice. Even so, the angle was awkward. You'd have to lean quite a way out, exposing yourself to counterfire. Personally, Ace would have been happier mounting the ambush from a vantage point somewhere opposite. However, the only building opposite was the cathedral, and there might be problems in setting up a machine gun nest in a cathedral, even in Chicago. As Ace turned away from the room, the door opened and a woman came into the room. She was small and plump, with brassy yellow hair and red fingernails. She wore a tatty-looking fur coat. She didn't look in the least like the conventional idea of a landlady. The woman glared suspiciously at Ace. "What the hell are you doing here?" "I heard there was a room vacant," said Ace innocently. "I thought I'd take a look at it." "Pull the other one, sister. A dame like you don't want to live in a crummy joint like this. What are you after?" "All right. I'm trying to get a line on the guy who had this room. Do you know where he is?" "Who wants to know?" "What do you care who wants to know?" asked Ace. "So long as you get yours." She took a roll of greenbacks from out of her bag and rifled through it. The woman's eyes fastened greedily on the money. "How much?" "Depends what you've got to sell." "The guy told me he was a musician. Okay, I knew he had a chopper in the violin case of that last day, but not all the time. I used to hear him play sometimes. I reckon he really was a musician. Maybe it was his cover." "What did he look like?" "Just average," said the woman hurriedly. "You wouldn't notice him in a crowd. I know the name of the place where he works. They called when he was out one time, left a message to call them back." "Where is it?" "It'll cost you." "How much?" "Couple of centuries." Ace peeled 20 $10 bills from the roll and held out the money. "Go on, spill it." "Palace Hotel on West 51st Street, said the woman, snatching the money. Ace went to the door, struggling to remember the dialogue from late-night B-movies. "Okay, sister, but this better be the straight dope. If it's not, I'll be back." She went out of the room. The blonde woman struck the money into her coat pocket. "I don't think you will, honey," she said softly. She began to laugh. Ace came out of the boarding house and saw that the old man was back in front of the shop, sweeping the sidewalk. He looked up and waved. "All right, missy?" "Fine, thanks, and you?" "Oh, I'm fine. Young Mr. Riccati ain't too good, though. He's gone off looking all bruised and battered. He ain't walking so good, neither. Dangerous places, flower shops. He must have trodden on a rake." The old man chuckled. "That rake sure beat the hell out of him. Can you tell me where I can get a taxi round here?" "Well, they usually goes right past the end of the street. Say, there's one." A taxi appeared on the corner, and Ace put 2 fingers in her mouth and gave a piercing whistle. The taxi drew up, and the old man opened the door for her. Ace reached for her purse, but he shook his head. "You take care now." "You too." Ace leaned forward to speak to the driver. "Palace Hotel, West 51st Street, please." "You don't want to go there, missy," said the old man. "That's a bad place." But it was too late. The taxi was already drawing away. The Palace Hotel had a kind of faded grandeur, like a society lady who had fallen on hard times. As Ace paid off her taxi, the driver said, "Hey, lady, you sure you want to go in there?" "Why shouldn't I?" "Well, it ain't the kind of place where ladies usually go." "You mean it's a men-only hotel?" No, said the taxi driver hurriedly. "There's ladies there, all right. Plenty of 'em." "So, what's the problem?" The driver, a burly, bald Chicagoan, actually managed to look embarrassed. "It's just that the ladies are already there, if you see what I mean, and the guys come to visit them for a while." "Are you trying to tell me this is a whorehouse?" "You said it, lady." "Oh, well," said Ace, "there's a first time for everything." She went into the hotel. There was nobody about in the lobby, which held a few shabby armchairs and dusty potted palms and a wide staircase curving upwards. Still a bit early for the lunchtime trade, thought Ace, and was annoyed to find herself blushing. A door off to the right led to what had once been the hotel bar, and probably still was, despite the hand-scrawled notice "Coffee Room" tacked over the door. Ace went inside, and found herself in a long room filled with a scattering of tables and chairs, all empty. There was a bar to her left. Behind it, a seedy little man in a grubby white apron was studying the racing page of the Tribune. Ace went up to the bar and perched on a stool. "Coffee, please." The man spoke without looking up. "Rye coffee or bourbon coffee?" "Just coffee, please." The man gave her a look of faint surprise, got up, and went over to the coffee urn behind the bar. He turned away from her, and Ace heard a hiss of steam and the chink of crockery. He turned back and put a steaming mug of coffee in front of her. The coffee smelled surprisingly good, and Ace took an appreciative swig. She realized she was hungry and helped herself to a hard-boiled egg from a bowl on the bar. "I'm looking for someone," she said. "One of your musicians." "Musicians don't come in till tonight," said the little man in his flat, toneless voice. "Guy comes in for a lunchtime quickie. He don't need to hear no band playing." "I suppose not," said Ace. She was surprised to find her head nodding, and took another swig of coffee to wake herself up. The little man had put down his paper and was studying her curiously. Ace looked back at him and saw his ratty features beginning to blur. Realizing too late what was happening to her, she reached for the Browning in her shoulder bag. It was on the bar, close to her hand, but as she reached for it, the bag seemed to move further and further away. Ace slumped forward onto the bar, her head between her arms. A door behind the bar opened, and Tony Riccati came through. He had changed his clothes for another equally garish outfit and dried his hair, but his upper lip was bruised and puffy. "Old Mickey Finn gets 'em every time," said the barman, with professional pride. "This the dame gave you the fat lip?" Riccati didn't answer. He came around the end of the bar, scooped the unconscious Ace off the stool, and carried her out of the bar and up the stairs.